YouTube? This is Jacob Beach with the Preppers Bunker Outdoors and my beautiful wife, Mrs. Beach. We also have a special guest today all the way from Arizona, and this is Mr. Beach Sr.
Woohoo! Hey, hey!
We're here to talk today about the History Channel's new show, Alone, Episode 4.
And an epic episode it was.
Alright, so the first thing that everybody's going to want to talk about today is Brant.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first thing that I noticed about Brant on day 1, episode 1, was he mentions that it's the worst shelter that he's ever made. We don't see much of Brant throughout these last few episodes until episode 4 here. But on day 5, I notice he's still in the same terrible shelter, in the same terrible place, doing the same nothing. What do you think about Brant here?
Well, you know, I think part of the whole problem with Brant is the guy just doesn't like camping in the first place. Yeah. You know, and to be a survivalist out there in the jungle, as he puts, it's actually a rainforest, you pretty much have to like going camping. And that's not Brant. He's not a camper.
No, he didn't like the canopy.
No, he doesn't like the canopy at all. As a matter of fact, he doesn't like the trees. He wants to be out on low tide the whole time. And that's a tough way of going about business.
And speaking of the tide, and we're going into his whole water situation, this is day 5, and he doesn't know if the water's fresh water or not. I don't understand how you wouldn't check that immediately.
Well, it's on day 6. He starts walking up and down his little inlet here. And he starts going, oh my gosh, there's barnacles here. This place stinks
Yeah, it
of
was
dead
stinky.
fish.
It was stinky.
So
I
you're
think he was
telling
making his teeth hurt too, though.
Yeah, he did mention his teeth were hurting.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, that
a little
whole low
dizzy.
tide thing was really having an adverse effect on his dental work.
Yeah, losing his mind. You're telling me that you've been drinking water for 6 days and you're just noticing that it's not good and you've been filtering it through moss?
I don't know.
That was good.
I've heard that process can take a month or two, so good on him. You know, he discovered that in 6 days, 5 days, whatever and stuff. I mean, that's pretty speedy.
He discovered it before he died.
Right, and that's always good. That's always good.
Now, whether or not he would have moved if he couldn't be rescued is still...
Oh yeah, moving though, I don't know. Because that actually involves getting under the trees and going camping, and that's not Brant.
The biggest problem I see here, Brant might have done more than the History Channel showed us, but what we saw was Brant not eating anything, not making a fire, drinking
Salt water.
bad water, which he knew, if he knew it was bad on day 6, he knew it was bad on day 1. I feel like Brant really hoped to win just by
Doing nothing.
doing nothing and not giving up and thinking that everybody else would have already given up by this point. I don't understand. He talked immediately about the effects of being alone after bragging about his ability to be alone. Talked about doing his deployments away from his family, being a fighter, being a soldier, now being a contractor over there in Africa.
Yeah. You know, but I don't think Brant ever had any real intention of being separated from adult supervision for more than 3 or 4 days, and I think 5 days was just over the top. You know? And as far as that whole military experience goes, you know, I think if he actually was in the military previously to this, I think his military occupation specialty was probably sick bay commander.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
that's kind of what I was thinking.
You know,
I
he
think-
didn't have any SOPs set up beforehand.
Exactly, and he didn't have anybody telling him where to go, what to dress for, and what to eat, and how to sleep, and where to place all this stuff. And
Well, I'll tell you what, if I had a private who made that shelter, I'd have him dragging his helmet all the way across our whole little OP or wherever we were for about half a day.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I think Brant, actually, I think he was going there with the intention of auditioning for an acting job. I think that he's a drama queen, And he's looking for some kind of movie career. That's what I think. I think he's trying to play a role, and he was really over the top with the acting and stuff. And I think he's actually looking for a career at Hollywood.
The melodramatic breakdown the night before.
That was good. That was really good. I mean, that was authentic, from the heart, real deep emotional craziness.
Everything seemed to be pre-planned with that. And then even when he called for a medic, he still wanted to say that his trip might be ended short.
Yeah.
Everything was, he thought of a way, it appears, to tap out without making it look like he tapped out.
All the while having a panic attack. Yeah.
This was the worst tap out of the series.
Absolutely. The pre-planned and the executed whining, though, was some of the best I've seen in a long time. It really was. So staging that whole pre-planned whining the day before, the evening before, really set himself up to get off the island like a champ.
You know, with his performance there, after watching The Expendables 3, I really feel that he could be cast on The Expendables 4.
I think so. I think he'd take probably lead in that, personally.
Him and
Yeah.
Stallone.
Absolutely. It was side by side.
Yeah.
So good on you, Brent. I thought that was genius. It's good acting.
Alright, so every episode, we have to skimp on one character or the other. And on this episode, I think Lucas, Alan, and Sam kind of got left out. But let's talk a little bit about Lucas. We've seen a lot of good stuff from him in the past, but how did you feel about him in this episode?
Lucas really is pulling it together as far as eating off the land and utilizing what he can. So I thought he did a sweet job at gathering those mushrooms and stuff. Personally, I'm chicken because I don't know mushrooms.
Yeah.
And so going out there and identifying the target mushroom, harvesting them, and making use of them shows a lot of good forethought and a lot of good planning.
Yeah, I don't know much about mushrooms either. I know a little bit of stuff to eat in that area, and I think I've been intimidated by mushrooms personally because I know if I screw with the wrong one, it's game over. And
Yeah.
because I know that, I've almost been intimidated to even get into it. And it's something that I need to get into myself. But it was cool that he was out there foraging and came home with a good bit of stuff to put in the gut.
Absolutely. I wouldn't want to make a whole 2-month diet on just mushrooms exclusively, but it shows promise that he's going in the right direction.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
For sure.
What do you think, Mike?
You put me on the spot.
Oh, no.
We'll just cut that part out. Okay. Yes, we will cut it out. Okay. So I think, okay, one more time. It's good to utilize your resources, like you guys are both saying. It's good knowledge to know what mushrooms are good and what mushrooms are not. So he's utilizing what he has out there. He's got some good foraging skills, so it's good.
Hopefully we'll start seeing more about him. I think that every episode we get the most information about whoever's tapping out.
Right, and that was really, really limited on him and stuff. That was just a
Yeah.
few little clips, and that was it.
Right.
So, hopefully we have to assume that Lucas is probably doing pretty good because when someone's not doing good, it makes for great footage.
There we go.
So, or if you're doing terrible in Brant's case and you're not doing anything good, then you're boring.
Or if you're putting a lot of effort into acting. Yeah, keep that in mind too.
Alright. So next up is Sam. We've seen character progression with Sam in this series, but not as much as I would like. We've seen Sam be really clever with a few things. We've seen him make jokes, and we've seen him keep a light spirit, which is good. But I've really been wanting to see more about what he's doing. In this episode, though, he said something that was really important to me. as he was talking about how to process his wood to get the dry wood, because he was able to get fire relatively quickly, he talks about how the downtime, when you're just in your shelter or doing whatever else, can really be hard on your mind.
Right, I noticed that, and he's keeping himself busy, he's keeping his mind active and that sort of thing, and that shows a real healthy, well-disciplined attitude and disposition. So good on you, Sam, for that. Although when I was checking that out, his shelter looked like crap.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. That's good, Sam. That's a good, like, 3-day, 4-day shelter or something like that. But you always got to be improving that foxhole. I mean, you got to sit there and build something that's going to be a little more substantial for when that nasty weather is.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that I don't particularly care for with his shelter is that it is out in the open. He doesn't really have any
Protection?
at all.
Right.
Well, there's ups and downs to that, of course, too. He might have more wind damage and more rain, but the likelihood of catching a branch through the tarp
Or a
is
whole
lower.
tree blowing over and just crushing his tent or something. True
So,
enough.
so there's ups and downs on his positioning there. I think that the fact that he knows that this time alone can mess with your mind
Yeah,
and is going to forcefully do something to avoid that shows that he's already been in the situation.
sure.
He is legitimate. He has been there and he has done that. A few of these other characters, I don't know. Basically, in the first episode, when I looked at their shelters, I could kind of say that he has no clue, he has no clue, and he has no clue. No clue at all.
Absolutely. But, attitude in a survival situation is at least 90% of the game.
Oh, absolutely.
And so if you've got a great attitude going into the situation right off the bat, you stay positive, you stay focused and everything, you can handle it, you can push it, you can defeat all the problems that are in front of you.
Right. Now, Sam's shelter is not one of those ones I was talking about, which was obviously bad. What I'm saying about Sam is that some of these people clearly didn't have experience making shelter.
Correct. Well, and some of the people, as far as that goes, they came into the whole scenario already defeated.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go into a survival situation and choose not to bring a knife, you're already defeated anyways.
Yeah. No doubt.
But, it's, we've been harping every episode, every commentary about the mental status, and time after time, we have not yet seen a physical defeat. We've seen mental defeats, and we felt bad for Joe when he lost his ferro rod, but that's still coming down as a mental defeat. He might have been the most legitimate so far. I do feel bad for the guy, but each of these guys that has lost so far in one way or another mentally snapped. So what it's going to come down to, we're going to get down to the point where the final contestants are mentally strong.
Absolutely.
And that 10% of what keeps you there of physical knowledge of how to survive
Right.
is going to make the mental state of the last survivors that much better. A good
Absolutely.
attitude will only get you so far, and once you're in there for 2 weeks, a month, whatever the case may be,
Right.
the attitude's only going to get you so far, and at some point you're going to have to know.
You have to know, you have to have some kind of proficiency, you have to have some kind of ability, otherwise you're not going to make it. True enough.
So, yep. But we like Sam, we're still grateful.
Absolutely.
Alright, so like I've said before, if you start out a show with a kukri and multicam, you've got automatic bonus points with me.
Absolutely, that just showed good preparation, and right off the bat you're setting yourself up for success.
Good taste. Good taste.
Absolutely, good on you.
But Alan said that if you're going to be alone for a long time, you better like yourself. I thought that was pretty funny. Alan's had a sense of humor throughout this whole thing, pretty funny. And, again, we haven't seen much about him, especially in this episode, but he mentioned he's getting into a routine. He's eating a lot of seaweed and stuff like that, but he has capacity to get water, so he's got enough water to offset all that salt intake, so he's doing fine. But he mentioned in this episode that he's getting into routine and his days seem longer. What that really said to me is that he's lost the excitement of being out there. The first few days he's working nonstop, he's excited to be there, he's got a lot of work, days fly by, day 5 and day 6, I think he's starting to get a little more comfortable, but really what I translated that to is he's getting bored, I think.
Yeah, you got to keep yourself occupied, and if you got some downtime, you always got to be improving your foxhole. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So if you find yourself being bored, you got to keep yourself busy, engaged, interested in your priorities. So, whether it's improving your shelter, which by the way looks fantastic.
Yeah,
That is a great looking shelter, without
Yes.
a doubt. That's the best I've seen.
it's sweet.
But, prepping out that tinder, doing whatever you can to set yourself up for success and everything for harsher conditions that may be on the horizon.
One thing that I noticed is we haven't seen any traps go up before this episode.
And that surprises me.
If you make a figure 4 trap, that's going to be good almost indefinitely.
Absolutely.
And so if you're bored, make some more traps, make some more spears. Survival is about every day making life easier, not for that day, not for the next day, but for
Right.
the long term.
Absolutely.
And so you can be out there for 30 years and every single day you still have a full list of things to do to improve your future. And so, we're going to have to see that kind of drive every single day to keep these guys' mental status where it needs to be. And so hopefully these guys are going to start getting comfortable and start becoming proficient in gathering food and making these things and getting stuff figured out and getting ready for the long haul.
Well, I think if any of these individuals at all find themselves bored and sitting in their shelter doing nothing, then they're setting themselves up for failure.
Yep.
I mean, if they're not out there, setting up those traps and improving their situation any way they can, then they're going backwards.
And going back to Brant for just a minute, because you had mentioned that, that's what Brant did. From almost all the footage that we've seen, he was
Put up a 10-minute shelter.
he was sitting in his tent, and we can see how far that got him.
Exactly.
It got him nowhere. We've seen a little bit Alan kind of pondering, questioning, analyzing himself. So I'm a little concerned that he's doing that. But it seems like he's still keeping himself busy in other ways. And Alan did say that he's trying to diversify his diet, which is really, that's good thinking.
Mhm.
So I'm just hoping that we continue to see Alan out doing stuff and not overanalyzing himself, because it won't get him very far.
Another thing that he's been doing that might help him keep his sanity is he's making his little notches. He's keeping track of time. You won't have to look back and say,
Yeah.
how long have I been here?
Absolutely.
And what
I'm
am
all
I
about
doing?
Having
And
that chronological record is a real nice way to keep focused, keep your mind on track, and keep your priorities straight.
as a man who designs and sells high carbon steel knives, specifically kukris, get some oil on that blade.
Oh man, absolutely. Hate seeing that rust and that deterioration, but it'll survive.
Yeah, at this point it's looking more like staining. I know that he's not going to let it rust to the point of uselessness,
Yeah.
but and it can be hard, especially in that kind of climate with a high carbon blade.
True enough. However, do a little splitting there. Split a little wood with it, and that friction stuff will pull all that garbage off that blade. So I think it's going to be fine. But make sure you like yourself, give yourself a hug, get all over that craziness, and keep your mind occupied with your priorities that are in front of you.
Task at hand.
Absolutely.
All right, so Dustin's having a bit of a hard time, but we see him start off with some kelp.
Yep.
He has bull kelp, snaps it, says it needs to snap like celery, skins it, eats it. Dustin's finding food. So,
We didn't really eat a lot of it. He just had a bite, and then he kind of set it to the side.
Maybe it wasn't good enough, but
Probably
it
untasty kelp, non-tasty kelp.
wasn't the best. It was bad stock.
Either that or just not enough seasoning.
Right.
I don't know.
But he's eating.
Yes, and that's good. It's always good to eat.
He's eating. He's got some water. I don't know if we've seen how he's getting his water, but he's got it. So that's good. Now I'm a knife guy. Part of what I do is design knives and distribute knives and whatever else. So of course, off the bat, I noticed this WSK that he's bringing.
It's a sweet knife. It looks cool anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it looks very cool. Basically,
I think one of the most important things in this entire show is to look cool.
well, you
And that
know,
knife was cool.
when I was learning how to snowboard, I was taught that how good you are really doesn't matter as long as you look cool.
Yeah, if you look good doing it, you've got everybody beat.
Right.
Yeah, that's a fact. Everybody knows that.
Let's say, so this WSK is a stainless blade. The tracker knife is an absolutely flawed design. It's actually
Well, that's only technically correct.
it's actually what was a springboard for me designing my workhorse, because I wanted to design a knife that had all the positive attributes of the tracker or WSK style knife without the detriments. And that is that the goofy secondary bevel makes the knife perform poorly at what a knife's first task is, which is
Who cares how it
spicy.
performs? It looks cool.
It does look
That
cool.
knife looks cool.
It looks
I want two of them,
Yeah, it
personally,
looks all
just because
eight-
they look cool.
all
I want one for
$800.
each hand. I will go into that situation with one in each hand
one
because they look cool.
one up grip, one down grip.
Absolutely. I get them coming and
Dark
going,
tone.
push, pull. Absolutely.
Speaking
Yeah.
of push pull, the only time in a survival situation where you want to draw your knife towards you is when you have the wood in your stomach or propped up somewhere next to you and you're working away from yourself with two hands. He was making that spear, whatever he was making there, and he was pulling that towards it. Just wrong answer.
I think there was a
Wrong
name for that. I think it's called Harry Carry.
And doesn't it also?
Isn't that Harry Carey when they took the short sword and they just kind of stabbed themselves in the gut to commit suicide in World War II?
I think that was like Bushido or something.
No, maybe so. I don't
It
know.
also just seems very unnatural. Going this way seems more.
A lot of
just
people
easier.
are skilled with the tracker knife.
Yeah.
The tracker knife can be used, but I can't help but think that if you have a lot of experience with knives and with survival, that you're not going to choose the tracker knife. It's hard. I mean, a lot of people like I have a tracker style knife myself, and I think I figured out within about 25 minutes what everybody else was saying about it. It's got a lot of downsides. I kept trying to use it. I've used it quite a bit to try and prove to myself that it did work.
I think you're just inexperienced at gathering kelp because that's what it's designed for. Everybody knows that,
Kelp gathering.
except for you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're an experienced kelp eater, gatherer, utilizer, you would know that that was the only knife to have.
That could be. Now, it is cool that it's stainless.
Yeah.
And if I was out there, I would choose a carbon blade. But while I was out there, I would probably wish I had stainless. I mean,
It's wet.
you're
There's
on
no doubt
salt
about it.
water.
Yeah.
And it's wet. It's a bummer. Which, speaking of how he's cutting up his wood, where is the thought process behind dragging around entirely waterlogged wood?
Well, this is the deal. You're out there, right? You're out there, you've been out there for a few days, and there's no gym around. You know, you can't go over to Gold's or Pure Fitness or anything like that, you know, so why not go out there and get that 1,000-pound piece of driftwood that just rolled in last night and drag it around for a while?
You know, if you find a piece of driftwood that's 5-10 years old, up at the highest point, it's been there for a while, it can be an excellent source of dry wood. It really
Absolutely.
can. One that weighs 3 times what it should because it's waterlogged, you might as well cut down a fresh green tree and wait for it to dry out because you're going to be saving yourself about half the time.
I don't know, because if a guy's out there and wants to really show off and show those skills off, I think he just grab the most waterlogged thing he can find and make a fire out of it. because that proves you know what you're doing. You can make a fire out of just something that's probably 80% water. You've got it going on.
Well, what you need to do to show that you're a professional is you need 100% water. Why cut?
That's a good point. That's a good point. I'd make that fire right out there in the middle of the salt water, personally.
I would just use the salt water in a pan and make a fire out of it.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good call. Now, I would be impressed if I saw that personally.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
You got that 20% of wood, that's just cheating.
it is. It is. It's a crutch.
So, no, I mean, Dustin hasn't been our strongest character. I'm hoping that he pulls some stuff together here. I feel like he's monologuing a lot at night. I don't know what's keeping him awake at night. A long night is a long sleep. It's a good thing. And if you're only scared of skunks, sleep easy, my friend, because you're not in North Arizona, and the chance of you having a nose-to-nose encounter with a skunk is pretty low.
I don't know. You know, I've personally heard from survival professionals that the skunks run in packs over there in the Vancouver area.
Yeah.
I think you get the pack skunk element coming into your AO and they can kill you.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, he's not concerned with the bears, the mountain lions. He's concerned about the skunks, and rightly so, because who wants to be all chewed to pieces by a whole pack of skunks?
Well, and the worst part is that the death is not from the chewing; it's from the multiple blasts to
Oh,
the
yeah.
face of skunk
Absolutely.
spray
Absolutely.
from all directions. You can't escape.
Yeah. Well, you're asphyxiated, or whatever that word is, where you can't even breathe anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're done.
Death by skunk.
It is. It's terrible. It's a harsh way to go. So
Slow
he's
thing.
oh man, it's horrible. Yeah, he's justified completely in his terrifying fear of the skunk herds. I think.
Yeah. Well, hey. We'll
If he was in tune with nature, though, if he was really in tune with nature, he put the ear to the ground, and you could hear those herds coming.
He might be able to put his nose in the wind.
That's true enough. Now, I never even thought about that, but that makes perfect sense.
Right.
Absolutely.
Poor guy.
Yeah, well, I hope he does well, and I hope he doesn't get eaten by a skunk.
Alright. Alright, so in this episode we saw quite a bit of Mitch. A lot of good there. I'd say Mitch is doing really well, and like we've seen in the past, he is finding obstacles and calmly figuring out ways around them.
Right, and the issue that he overcame this episode was while he was out there, it's his daughter's 4th birthday, and
Yeah.
he wasn't there to celebrate with his daughter. I thought it was really sweet when they showed footage of his family back at home, and his little daughter told her dad that he was lovely. That's just really sweet. So I understand why Mitch would be having a little bit of a hard time. Obviously, he loves his daughter very much, and not being there with her, that'd be hard. But what Mitch needs to remember is that he is out here to benefit his family.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely making your family life better. And I don't remember what I was going to say now.
Well, he was a little
I
bit
think just a minute.
sentimental. And there were waterworks involved.
Okay, I remember what I was going to say. Okay. And even though he had faced a little bit of an obstacle, he was able to calmly overcome it and be very successful throughout the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
Now, seeing grown men cry definitely makes me uncomfortable. But,
I've cried before.
alright,
I cried when there were no more 22 rounds on the shelf to purchase. I just broke down right there on the spot, and I was crying in the store.
yeah.
So, and I also cried again when it went back on the shelves, and it was like $60 a brick. That's twice in the same store.
I feel like crying when I look at how much 22 I have left.
Oh yeah. or just looking at my 22s knowing that I can't use them.
No, but you know, after you've spent a lot of time without eating and stuff, you can get a little emotional, and he loves his family. I think the real issue that we saw with Mitch is he's looking at his survival in the long term and realized that he was using up his ferro rod too quickly.
Right.
He could make a fire out there. He was the first one to make a fire out there, but he realized that his fire source was dwindling quickly and that there must be another resource out there that could be used.
Sure.
I love cedar. I've talked in some of my other videos about the use of cedar for making a fire, and he figured it out. He pulled that cedar bark, made it into a little fuzz, did something that I thought was really cool. I just leave it at the cedar bark and fuzz, and once it's dry, it'll take a spark.
Absolutely.
But he made the char out of it, and was able to make a nice little ember and get his cedar going using an Altoids tin to make the char cloth cedar.
And you know, coming up with a idea and then not only preparing your material to try out that idea, but also you know, giving it a try, sparking it, lighting it, seeing if it works, does nothing but inspire confidence. It inspires confidence in yourself and your plan and in your ability to go out there and survive.
Yep, and then, you know, the other obstacle that everybody's facing, and everybody will face in a survival situation, is hunger. I think, and that probably led to, you know, his breakdown, thinking about his family. And so, you know, his spirits were really getting down. He set out his little gill net and got himself a big old salmon.
Yeah, that coho was sweet. That was a sweet fish.
Very cool.
Now,
Me personally, I would not go out at night just because it is way more dangerous at night.
well, as people, we're at quite a disadvantage at night to your typical predator.
Right. Well, I mean, if you go out there, especially in the Puget Sound area, you know, you can lose your shoes in the mud.
Yeah, that'd be a bad
They can
situation.
just get sucked right off your feet, and if it's at night, you'll never find them. So,
Or dig it out when it's 4 feet deep.
absolutely.
And I've been there. I think we've both been there.
Yeah.
Now, this has led to a mistake by Mitch, and I'm hoping that through this he'll remedy this mistake. And it's something that Alan already has figured out, and that's having a separate place to eat. You do not eat where you sleep. You're attracting predators to your camp, and
Well, you know, the thing about that is, too,
and
regardless of how long you're out there in your shelter, if you eat some fish where you sleep, you're never getting rid of that. So the whole time that you're in that shelter, it doesn't matter if you're in there for 2 months, that stink of fish is going to be retained, and all those predators can smell it.
And even if you're in an area without predators, you don't want red ants being attracted to where you are. You don't want everything else being attracted to where you are. So I really hope that Mitch sticks it through the situation with this mountain lion. And I really hope that he uses his ability to reason and think things through, and that he gets a separate little area set up for eating, because Mitch has shown that I think that he has the skills to survive,
Absolutely.
and he needs to apply them in the right areas, and so we have high hopes for Mitch.
Well, I love the skills that he showed in just preparing the fish and having it all spread out over
That was
the
cool.
open flame and
That
stuff.
was smart.
That's sweet. I haven't seen that before. So that was really cool to see.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to see Mitch come out of this wearing a little kitty hat and just being able to sport that around town when he's all done.
Hopefully he'll get those bow and arrows out. We know he has the skills to use them,
Yeah.
and he'll come out with this looking like a mountain man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, guys. So to wrap this thing up, everybody's been talking about their favorite character, who they think is going to win. Who do you guys think? Who are you guys rooting for at this point?
Well, my top 3, since I can't narrow it down right now to the winner, would be Alan, Mitch, and Sam. Alan, he seems pretty comfortable out there, and I feel like he knows quite a bit of skills, and he's he's thinking for the long term. With Mitch, like we saw in this episode, he confronts obstacles and he overcomes them. So he's also thinking long term. He thinks outside of the box a lot with his survival. So I could see him winning. And then Sam is just really comfortable in the wilderness. So again, he's also thinking long term. So those are my top three. I can't narrow it down yet.
Cool. Well, I kind of like Mitch. I like Mitch showing a little bit of resilience there, overcoming a little bit of heartache and that sort of thing, and being able to bounce back, refocus, and consider what his priorities are. So I like the fact that he knows who to thank for what he has and what he'll receive in the future. So with that kind of strength, he's got unlimited potential.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think I'm narrowing it down to two categories here. I think my two strongest competitors are Mitch and Sam.
Mhm.
Mitch, I think, is the survivalist. Mitch has these skills. I think he's the most skilled competitor. And I think Sam is the adventurer. Sam has experience adventuring by himself, crossing deserts by himself, and doing a lot of stuff by himself, where he might not be as strong in survival skills as Mitch. I think he is stronger in spending time by himself and adventuring, and he's been there and done that by himself. So I'd say he's the strongest there. I'd say both Lucas and Alan are wild cards. Anything can happen to these guys, anything can happen to even the best person, and either Alan or Lucas show that they are survivors, they are out there to win, they both have a chance. But since this is not your average survival scenario, this is not surviving until you're rescued, this is surviving until you give up, I'm going to give the edge to Sam, because instead of surviving or practicing surviving in traditional means or in a traditional way, he's gone out there, he's an adventurer. He spends time by himself, he's got that mindset, and he really knows where to put his mindset, and he knows what's going to happen.